My friends, I am Napoleon Hill. When Mr. Andrew Carnegie commissioned me in 1908 to document the universal principles of success, little did I know that my research would span 20 years and include interviews with over 500 of America's most successful men, from Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell to Henry Ford and Charles Schwab. These men, who built great industries and amassed unprecedented fortunes, shared with me their innermost thoughts on what separates those who achieve from those who merely dream. And in these conversations, conducted in offices and private homes across our great nation, one truth emerged with striking clarity. The greatest enemy of achievement is not lack of education, opportunity, or talent, but the debilitating fear of failure. In these difficult times, as our nation struggles through the worst economic crisis in its history, I see this fear paralyzing the potential of countless Americans. Men who once boldly pursued their ambitions now hesitate to take even the smallest risk. Women who dreamed of building enterprises now cling desperately to security. Young people with bright minds delay their futures, waiting for better times that will never arrive through waiting. Yet the principles I am about to share with you are the very same that have created fortunes during our nation's darkest hours. For you see, economic depressions, like all challenges, contain within them the seeds of opportunity. Seeds that can only be harvested by those who have conquered their fear of failure. The fear of failure is not unique to our modern age. It has haunted mankind throughout history. But today, I will show you how to transform this fear into the fuel for your success, just as the great men and women of our age have done before you. For in my research, I discovered that success is not a matter of chance, but of choice. Specifically, the choice to face our fears, rather. Before we can conquer any enemy, we must understand it thoroughly. The fear of failure is not merely the concern over a single unsuccessful venture. It is far more complex and insidious in its nature. At its core, the fear of failure is the dread of criticism, the terror of disapproval, and the horror of being judged as inadequate by those whose opinions we value. It is the fear that our efforts will not measure up to our own expectations or the expectations of others. And this fear, my friends, can be more paralyzing than the fear of physical danger. In my interviews with over 500 of the most successful men in America, I discovered that this fear manifests in three primary ways, each of which creates a distinct barrier to achievement. First, as procrastination, the thief of time and opportunity. How many of you have delayed action on your ambitions, telling yourself that tomorrow would be a better day to begin, that you need more preparation, more knowledge, more capital, or more favorable conditions? This is not prudence, my friends, but fear disguised as caution. I recall my conversation with Mr. Woolworth, who built a retail empire from a humble 5-and-dime store. "Mr. Hill," he told me, "I wasted 7 precious years working as a clerk, dreaming of my own store, but always finding reasons why the time wasn't right. It was only when my health failed and I faced the prospect of having achieved nothing that I finally took action. My only regret is not starting sooner." Second, fear manifests as perfectionism, the pursuit of the impossible ideal. The perfectionist believes that anything short of flawless execution is equivalent to failure. This belief paralyzes action, for perfection is a horizon that continually recedes as we approach it. I recall my conversation with Mr. Edison, who tested over 10,000 materials before finding the right filament for his electric light. When I asked if he felt discouraged by these failures, he looked at me with surprise. "Failures?" he said. "I didn't fail 10,000 times. I successfully eliminated 10,000 materials that wouldn't work, bringing me 10,000 steps closer to success. Had Edison demanded perfection on his first attempt, we might still be reading by candlelight." Third, fear appears as the avoidance of worthy challenges. Many a man has settled for mediocrity rather than risk failure in the pursuit of greatness. They choose the certainty of small success over the possibility of magnificent achievement. They build a fence of limitations around themselves and call it their comfort zone, never realizing that comfort and growth can never coexist. Mr. Carnegie shared with me that his greatest challenge in business was not competition or technology, but finding men who were willing to take calculated risks.
For every 100 men who can withstand adversity, he said, only one can withstand the test of unlimited opportunity. The fear of failing at something grand drives most to attempt only the small and the safe. The roots of this fear lie deep within our nature. We are social creatures, dependent upon the approval and acceptance of our fellows. In primitive times, rejection from the tribe meant certain death in the wilderness. Today, though the stakes are less dire, our minds still react to potential failure as if our very survival were threatened. Our educational system, I regret to say, often reinforces this fear. Children are taught to prize the right answer over the valuable question, to value the safe response over the creative risk. They learn early that mistakes bring punishment and ridicule, while conformity brings rewards. Is it any wonder that by adulthood, many have developed a pathological fear of failure? Yet understand this fundamental truth. Failure is not your enemy. Failure is your teacher, your guide, and often your salvation from paths that would not have served you. Every successful person I interviewed had experienced numerous failures on their path to achievement. The difference was not in how often they failed, but in how they interpreted and responded to those failures. As Mr. Ford told me during a walk through his factory in Dearborn, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. This perspective transforms failure from a terminal event into a stepping stone, from something to be feared into something to be valued.
The price of fear is far greater than the price of failure. This is a truth that few understand, but that my research has confirmed beyond all doubt. Consider the case of my friend Mr. Darby, a gold miner who stopped drilling just 3 feet from one of the richest veins in Colorado. After months of labor and substantial investment, he abandoned his claim because he feared further failure would lead to financial ruin. The man who purchased his equipment for pennies on the dollar and continued drilling in the same spot uncovered a fortune that would be worth millions in today's dollars. How many of you, my friends, have stopped drilling just 3 feet from gold? How many dreams have you abandoned when success was just around the corner? How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because you feared what might happen if you failed? The fear of failure extracts 3 terrible costs that far exceed the price of any single failure. First, it robs you of opportunity. In these difficult economic times, while many see only disaster, the clear-minded see unprecedented opportunity. When assets are undervalued, when competition retreats, when necessity drives innovation, these are the conditions in which fortunes are made. Mr. Rockefeller began his oil business during the Panic of 1873, purchasing refineries at a fraction of their value from fearful owners. Mr. Ford revolutionized the automobile during the Depression of 1893, when others thought it madness to start a new manufacturing enterprise. Mr. Giannini, founder of the Bank of America, made his boldest expansions during financial crises, when other bankers retreated in fear. Great fortunes await those with the courage to act while others are paralyzed by fear. As Baron Rothschild wisely advised, the time to buy is when there's blood in the streets. Harsh words, perhaps, but they contain a profound truth. Opportunity is most abundant precisely when fear is most prevalent. Second, fear deteriorates your health and peace of mind. The human body was not designed to carry the burden of constant anxiety. Our bodies respond to fear, even imagined fear, with the same physiological reactions as to physical danger. Increased heart rate, shallow breathing, muscle tension, and the release of stress hormones that, over time, damage our organs and deplete our vitality. The tension of perpetual fear manifests as nervous disorders, digestive ailments, heart conditions, and premature aging. I have interviewed men who gained fortunes but lost their health to worry, and they all assured me that no amount of money was worth such a price. As Mr. Rockefeller told me after his health collapsed at the height of his wealth, I would have given all my millions for a stomach capable of digesting a simple meal. Third, and perhaps most damaging, the fear of failure becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you expect defeat, you unconsciously take actions that ensure it. Your posture, your tone of voice, your lack of persistence, all communicate to others that you do not believe in your own success. The world has a curious habit of giving us exactly what we expect of it, Those who expect failure attract failure as surely as those who expect success attract success. This is not mysticism, but practical psychology. When you expect to fail, you approach opportunities half-heartedly, give up at the first obstacle, and interpret neutral events as negative, all of which guarantee the very outcome you fear. I recall a young man who approached Mr. Carnegie seeking employment. Though well qualified, his manner was hesitant, his handshake limp, and his eyes downcast. Mr. Carnegie later told me, "That young man had failure written all over him. Had I hired him, his fear would have infected my entire organization." The young man's fear of failure had become the cause of his failure. The greatest cost of fear, however, is the life not lived, the song not sung, the book not written, the business not started, the love not declared. On their deathbeds, few people regret the failures they experienced. They regret the possibilities they never pursued because of their fear of failure. To master fear, we must understand that it exists only in the mind. It is not a thing of substance, but a state of thought. Fear has no existence outside the mind that harbors it. This understanding is your first step toward freedom. In my research for Think and Grow Rich, I identified 6 basic fears that plague mankind. The fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. The fear of failure encompasses 3 of these: the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, and the fear of loss of love of someone. These fears operate through a process I call autosuggestion, the constant repetition of negative thoughts until they become beliefs. The human mind is like fertile soil. It will grow whatever seeds are planted within it, whether those seeds are positive or negative. Just as a farmer cannot grow wheat and weeds in the same soil, your mind cannot simultaneously harbor thoughts of fear and thoughts of achievement. The mind is divided into 2 parts: the conscious, reasoning mind, with which you are listening to me now, and the subconscious mind, which accepts and acts upon any thought you allow to remain in your consciousness. The conscious mind is the gatekeeper, but the subconscious mind is the power plant. When you repeatedly entertain thoughts of possible failure, your subconscious mind accepts these thoughts as instructions and finds ways to bring them into reality. It influences your actions, your decisions, and even your physical body to align with these negative expectations. This is why the Bible tells us, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." But here lies our greatest power. We can choose our thoughts. While we cannot always control our circumstances, we maintain absolute control over our reaction to those circumstances. This is the foundation of all achievement. The process works like this. An external event occurs. This event has no inherent meaning until we assign it one. We can interpret this event as evidence of our inevitable failure, or we can interpret it as a temporary setback, a learning opportunity, or even a blessing in disguise. Our interpretation, not the event itself, determines our emotional response and subsequent actions. Consider 2 salesmen who face 10 rejections in a single day. The first thinks, "This proves I'm a failure. No one wants my product. I should quit before I embarrass myself further." The second thinks, "Each rejection brings me closer to success. These 10 people weren't my ideal customers, but they've helped me refine my approach for the next prospect." Same circumstance, different interpretation, vastly different outcomes. Fear also creates what psychologists call selective perception. When dominated by fear, your mind becomes hypervigilant for evidence that confirms your fears while filtering out contrary evidence. A fearful investor sees only potential losses, never potential gains. A fearful entrepreneur notices only the businesses that fail, never those that succeed. This selective perception creates a distorted view of reality that further reinforces fear. Understanding these psychological mechanisms gives you the power to interrupt them. When you catch yourself in a spiral of fearful thoughts, you can consciously redirect your mind toward evidence of your capabilities, past successes, and the opportunities present in every challenge. Remember, fear thrives in vagueness and diminishes with specificity. When you clearly define what you fear,
you often discover that the reality is far less threatening than the amorphous dread you've been carrying. As Mr. Roosevelt wisely said in his first inaugural address, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Let me share with you the wisdom gleaned from the greatest minds of our generation on conquering the fear of failure. These men faced obstacles far greater than most of us will ever encounter, yet they transformed potential defeat into monumental success. Mr. Thomas Edison, whom I had the privilege of interviewing multiple times, embodied the proper attitude toward failure. After his laboratory burned to the ground in 1914, destroying years of research and records valued at millions of dollars, Edison surveyed the smoking ruins and told his son, "We've just been cleared of a lot of rubbish. Now we can start anew." The very next day, at 67 years of age, he began rebuilding. Within 3 weeks, he delivered his first phonograph. When I asked him how he maintained such resilience, he replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Edison viewed failure not as a defeat, but as the elimination of approaches that would not work. Each failure narrowed the field of possibilities and brought him closer to success. This perspective transformed what others would consider failures into stepping stones. Mr. Henry Ford told me personally, "Failure is only the opportunity to begin again, more intelligently." Few remember that Ford's first automobile company went bankrupt, and his second company collapsed after disputes with investors. It was only with his third attempt that he created the Ford Motor Company that revolutionized American industry. When I asked him about these early failures, he said, "Had I succeeded immediately, I would have been using horse and buggy manufacturing methods to build automobiles. My failures forced me to innovate." Ford did not abandon his vision after initial failures. He studied his mistakes, improved his design, refined his manufacturing process, and tried again with greater wisdom. Today, his Model T has revolutionized American life, bringing automobile ownership within reach of the average family. Mr. Andrew Carnegie, who sponsored my research, rose from poverty as a Scottish immigrant to become the richest man in America. He began working in a cotton factory at age 13 for $1.20 per week. Through determination and strategic thinking, he built the largest steel company in the world. He shared with me that his success came not from avoiding failure, but from developing the habit of extracting lessons from each setback. "The man who never makes mistakes," he said, "never makes anything." Carnegie viewed failures as tuition paid for valuable education no university could provide. Even President Roosevelt, who leads our nation through these troubled times, demonstrates this principle. Stricken with polio in the prime of life and unable to walk, he refused to be defined by this failure of his body. Instead, he developed extraordinary strength of character that now guides our country through its darkest hour. When asked about his disability, he said, "If you spend your whole life feeling sorry for yourself, you won't have time to do anything else." The brilliant inventor Alexander Graham Bell faced countless failures before perfecting the telephone. When I asked him about his persistence, he shared a profound insight. When one door closes, another opens. But we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the one which is opened for us. This wisdom reminds us that opportunities often arise from the ashes of failure, but only for those with eyes to see them. The department store magnate J.C. Penney lost virtually everything in the stock market crash of 1929. At 56 years old, he was financially and emotionally broken, yet he rebuilt his fortune by focusing not on what he had lost, but on the knowledge and relationships he had retained. "I had to decide," he told me, "whether that experience would make me bitter or better." His choice led to even greater success. These men did not succeed because they were free from fear. They succeeded because they acted despite their fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. What distinguished these men was not an absence of failure, but their response to failure. They refused to interpret failure as a judgment of their worth or abilities. Instead, they saw it as valuable feedback, a necessary step in the learning process, and often as a redirection toward greater opportunities. Now, my friends, let us turn to practical methods for conquering the fear of failure. These techniques have been tested and proven by the most successful men of our age. They are not theoretical abstractions, but practical tools that you can begin using today. First, define your purpose with absolute clarity. Vague desires produce vague results and foster fear through uncertainty. Write down precisely what you wish to achieve, by what date, and what price you are willing to pay. This definiteness of purpose creates a burning desire that will overcome any fear. I recall Mr. Charles Schwab telling me how he rose from day laborer to president of United States Steel. Each night, he said, I wrote down 6 tasks to accomplish the next day, arranged in order of importance. I would not rest until they were complete. This simple habit, practiced with unwavering consistency, helped build one of the greatest industrial empires in history. Your written statement should be specific, measurable, and emotionally charged. Instead of writing, I want to be successful in business, write, by December 31st, 1938, I will have established a profitable enterprise that generates $5,000 monthly in revenue by providing superior typewriting services to law firms in Chicago. Specificity eliminates the fog of uncertainty where fear breeds. Second, create a mastermind alliance. No one succeeds alone. Form a group of like-minded individuals who share your values and support your goals. Meet regularly to share ideas, provide encouragement, and hold each other accountable. When your own courage falters, the strength of your allies will sustain you. Mr. Carnegie attributed his success largely to his mastermind group. No mind is complete by itself, he told me. I needed the knowledge, experience, and abilities of other men to supplement my own. Your mastermind should include individuals with diverse skills and perspectives, but unified purpose. Meet at regular intervals, weekly if possible, and maintain absolute confidentiality to ensure honest exchange. Third, transform fear through daily auto-suggestion. Each morning and evening, repeat aloud your written statement of desire with absolute faith that it is already being fulfilled. Remember, your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between actual experience and vividly imagined experience. By consistently feeding it thoughts of success, you reprogram the very source of fear. This practice must be done with emotion and belief. Mere mechanical repetition is insufficient. As you speak your desire, visualize it as already accomplished. Feel the emotions of achievement, the pride, the satisfaction, the joy. These emotions are the language of the subconscious mind and will accelerate the transformation of thought into reality. Fourth, take immediate action. Nothing dissolves fear like decisive movement. Mr. Ford told me, you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. Break your goal into small, manageable tasks and complete at least one each day. Each small victory builds confidence for the next challenge. I recommend beginning with the simplest tasks to build momentum. Early success, however small, creates psychological capital that can be invested in greater challenges. If you fear public speaking, begin by speaking to a single, sympathetic listener. If you fear entrepreneurship, start with a small venture requiring minimal investment. Action is the antidote to fear. Fifth, develop persistence through a definite plan. Temporary defeat is not failure. It is merely a signal that your plan needs revision. The oak tree that stands against the storm does so because its roots run deep. Let your persistence be so firmly rooted that no rejection, no criticism, and no setback can deter you from your purpose. Mr. Edison's laboratory notes revealed that he conducted 9,000 experiments before perfecting the storage battery. When I asked him about this extraordinary persistence, he replied, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." Develop the habit of persisting just one step beyond where others typically quit, and you will succeed where they fail. Sixth, turn adversity to advantage. In every failure lies the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. When the stock market crashed in 1929, many saw only ruin, but Mr. Joseph Kennedy saw opportunity and multiplied his fortune by purchasing quality stocks at unprecedented discounts. Train yourself to ask, what advantage can I find in this situation? And you will never be without hope. This requires a fundamental shift in perspective, from seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances to seeing yourself as a creator of circumstances. When faced with adversity, ask, how can this serve me? What can I learn? What opportunity does this present that would not otherwise exist? This perspective transforms the energy of fear into the energy of creativity. Seventh, maintain perfect health. A strong body creates a strong mind. Proper nutrition, adequate rest, regular exercise, and moderation in all things will give you the physical stamina to withstand the pressures that accompany any worthy achievement. Remember that fear often begins as physical fatigue. Mr. Rockefeller, despite his wealth, suffered poor health until he adopted a regimen of moderate exercise, careful diet, and adequate rest. He told me, I would gladly have given all my millions for a body capable of digesting the simplest meal. Do not make his mistake. Treat your body as the precious instrument it is. Eighth, study the lives of those who have overcome great failures. Biography is a vastly underappreciated resource for conquering fear. When you read of Lincoln's repeated defeats before reaching the presidency, of Churchill's political wilderness years, of Helen Keller's triumph over blindness and deafness, your own challenges are placed in proper perspective. I keep a journal of inspiring stories of persistence that I review whenever my own courage falters. This practice reminds me that my struggles are not unique and that others have overcome far greater obstacles than those I face. As Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, look back over the past, with its changing empires that rose and fell, and you can foresee the future too. Finally, develop faith through understanding of infinite intelligence. The universe operates according to perfect laws. When you align yourself with these laws through right thought and right action, you connect with a power greater than yourself. This connection dissolves fear by revealing its unreality in the face of cosmic order. Mr. Carnegie, though a man of practical business, maintained that his success came from harmony with what he called infinite intelligence. He explained, when I align my thoughts and actions with universal principles, I become a channel for power beyond my individual capacity. This faith is not blind belief, but reasoned confidence in the orderliness of the universe and your place within it. You may wonder how to apply these principles in times like these when our nation faces unprecedented economic hardship. Let me be clear. There has never been a better time to master the fear of failure. Consider that Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Carnegie, and Mr. Ford all built their greatest successes during periods of economic depression. Why? Because when others retreated in fear, they advanced with courage. While others complained about conditions, they focused on opportunities. Today, despite the breadlines and bank failures, new industries are being born. Motion pictures bring entertainment to millions. Radio connects our nation as never before. Air travel shrinks vast distances. Opportunity surrounds us, visible only to those who refuse to be blinded by fear. Let me suggest specific applications of these principles for our current conditions. If you are unemployed, rather than seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance, see this as an opportunity to pursue the work you have always wanted to do. Use this time to develop new skills, to study your chosen field, and to make connections that will serve you when prosperity returns, as it inevitably will. If your business struggles, examine it with fresh eyes. What services or products might you offer that address the unique needs of these difficult times? Mr. Woolworth's five and dime stores thrived during economic downturns by providing affordable goods when expensive items were beyond reach. What equivalent might you provide today? If your investments have suffered, remember Mr. Kennedy's strategy of purchasing quality assets at distressed prices. The greatest transfer of wealth in history occurs during economic contractions, from the fearful to the courageous. If you are a young person whose education or career has been interrupted, use this time to clarify your definite purpose. Many of the successful men I interviewed told me that forced pauses in their early careers became the foundation of their later success by compelling them to define what they truly wanted. The principles I have shared with you today are not theories. They are laws as certain as gravity.
They have created fortunes and rebuilt lives in the worst of times. They will work for you if you work with them. My friends, as we conclude our time together, remember this: failure is not your enemy. Your only true enemy is the fear that prevents you from trying. The men and women who will emerge from these difficult times to build America's future will not be those with the most resources or the finest education. They will be those who have mastered their fears. In my years of research, I discovered that success is not granted to the privileged few. It is available to anyone with the courage to dream, the determination to act, and the will to persevere. The choice now lies before you. Will you allow the fear of failure to determine your destiny? Or will you join the ranks of those who have converted fear into fuel for achievement? Remember the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson: "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain." Begin today with one small act of courage, then another, then another. Soon you will look back and marvel at the distance you have traveled. The future belongs to the fearless. Make it yours.